Alright, how's it going, everyone? This is Anon. None of this is financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. Alright, need to get everything in order. I had a day. What's up, Jerry? I think you were the undisputed first. How's it going? What's up, J-Thumb? I had a day. I think some of you guys know I spent the last 4 hours on the side of the road. So I started with driving home from work, and I was supposed to be going to a networking event. I'm on the board of a local, networking thing, and ends up I hear like my car's pulling to the right, and I'm like, something's going on here, and like next thing I know, I pulled over to the gas station because I was like, something's not right. So I pulled over, and I get in there, and I have a completely flat tire. I'm like, oh, that's not good. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna risk it and just drive it over to the air pump. So I put it over to the air pump, and it wasn't working, and I'm like, that's not good. So I call up the nearest repair shop, and I'm like, hey, can you guys give me a tow over to your shop? And he's like, we're closing. And I'm like, he's like, all right, I'll come over there. What kind of tire do you need? So I give him the tire numbers. Guy shows up after 2.5 hours, and he's like, yeah, there's another person in front of you, so sorry. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, my event's getting over with. I'm texting people at the event, and I'm like, all right, well, guess I'm not going tonight. So I'm sitting there, and he comes to the place, and he's got 2 tires, and he's like, hopefully one of these fits. And he gets it on, or gets there, takes the tire off, and because I didn't have a jack, I don't have a spare tire, so I would have changed it myself if I had one of those, but I didn't have either. So I'm like, all right. So he comes and neither tire fits, and I'm like, so he's like, oh, run to my shop and find something that matches. So he goes to his shop, and he comes back with this makeshift tire that he it looked like I don't know, it's got goop all over it, and so he ends up slapping this thing on, and sure enough, he puts it on, everything's good, I pay him, and next thing I know, I start driving off, and I hear this, so I call the guy, I'm like, listen, man, I know you just pulled out, but can you come back in? Something's not right. He's like, all right. So he has equipment, I don't. So we go over, and we start looking. He jacks it up again. He's like, oh, your coil's broken. Actually, ironically enough, it was the spring. So the suspension coil was broken, and it was rubbing against the tire, which if I had tried to drive home with that new tire, it would have popped that one too. Because as you turned the wheel, it pressed into the tire. So the suspension coil had snapped. Yeah, so anyway. So not only did I need a new tire, but I also need a suspension coil, and I don't know what else it's going to be, but not a good day. It's going to be an expensive day tomorrow when I have to replace all that stuff. So yeah, I spent 4 hours sitting in the parking lot waiting for the stuff, and then all right, Anon, what is your general opinion on this whole AMC ape dividend thing? You think it's going to make the stock price pop sooner or easier? So I think in some ways it's a form of dilution. It was like a workaround, basically, because AMC shareholders didn't want to vote for dilution, which makes sense. I mean, nobody does. So they issued this dividend basically as a I would probably lean towards the accountant on this. Like, I could ask one of the accountants that we just kind of been wrangling in to ask how this kind of works. But from what I understood, it's sort of like a dilution event. They're raising money through the, I guess, I don't know. There's some complexity to this, obviously, that I'm not like 100% on. But from what I understood, it seems to be a way of raising extra cash, which means that in the long run, it's not, I don't think, a good thing. Sorry, here we go. I'm just pulling up and trying to see if I can find something on it. I think Adam Aaron's going to kill out the synthetics. Yeah, I don't know about that. Right? So AMC ape dividend. I'd love a real explanation from like an accountant to figure out how this is going to be, because they're like preferred shares, if I remember correctly, and then like there's something else to it. Okay, so, but it's not like a digital dividend that they can't issue out, right? Does anyone have like DD or like an accountant's explanation of this? Because I'd love to actually read how it's going to work. Let me take off some of this. Okay. So they're going to, let me just pull this up. This is Main Street Media, but let's see. While the notion that retail investors didn't want to see any more dilution, the ape maneuver by AMC will give the exhibitor more financial flexibility. The new preferred shares are akin to having another stock, and AMC will be able to do deals and possibly pay down debt with it. So I guess it's like a workaround because they're technically raising money under a separate like symbol. So instead of diluting AMC, they could be technically, let's see. The current share price, blah, 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 blah. One ape share for one AMC share. People are very curious how the brokers will issue the ape shares if the broker has sold to synthetics. I mean, they thought the same thing for GameStop, but GameStop's still dealing with that. So I will tell you this: if there is a way for them to weasel out of things, they will figure it out, because that's how this stuff works. Like they don't roll over and die. They just basically will commit fraud before actually trying to, do something about it. So, let's see. But yeah, I mean, it could be interesting. I mean, AMC's obviously doing, like, decently, right? You have, let's see, like they had a good day today. They had another 7% up, right? So they announced the dividend this day. Since then, they've been basically, kind of jumping up and down. Yeah, that was a really interesting day there. I had ridden some 21 covered calls, and I ended up losing them. And I've been waiting for a chance to buy back in, and it's been lower. So. Ape will surely pump the stock to shake apes and then dilute to kick off the rest. Popcorn's done. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it's executed and how it goes because, you know, oh, sorry. Sitting off to the side. So, obviously, let's see. I posted something on Reddit. I think some of you guys got to read it. Let's see. Why does everyone think I disappeared? Just because I didn't write Reddit stuff? What would you say about Hood? All right, so here's the deal. Like, I know people. Why are people talking about Hood again? You're like the third or fourth person that's been asking about Hood. It didn't go up today, right? It's not really doing anything. It's up 25% over the last month, but like, they're gonna get nailed. I mean, like, they're down 70% since their IPO, if not more than that, right? From their peak when they hit like 55, they're down even more than that. So, what was the similar story with GME? So GME issued out a dividend split, and it was not executed properly by many brokers. And they're saying the DTC told them to do it a certain way, which was just become a regular stock split, but that's not what it was issued as. So, yeah, non-bots talking about Hood, right? Robinhood stated that they will be the... Oh, God. Robinhood is just... They had an opportunity to be a major broker, and they screwed themselves. Like, that's just the honest truth of it. Is nobody had any clue that they were as corrupt and evil as they were. People liked their platform. It was easy to use. I mean, I even had it. I mean, I didn't do that many trades with it, but I had it as a fun account that I would just throw like some options in and, just kind of YOLO. And I mean, they could have been a huge thing, and instead they screwed their own customers because, and I understand why they did it, because they couldn't afford what they had sold. Like, when GameStop was running at its peaks, they were literally on the hook for like billions of like dollars worth of shares, and they like couldn't afford them. Like, they were going to go down. So, can we make a platform and call it Robinhood's Hood? I mean, and then they did literally the opposite of what their name means. And so, like, to me, Robinhood's dead. Like, you killed off your customer base. Like, nobody wants to touch them. Like, yeah, sure, you'll have some people that are like new and don't really understand those things, but like anyone that was in on GameStop or like, is on Reddit essentially is going to be like booed off if they show Robinhood screenshots. I mean, I know some people like to look at it for the charting, but like, 'cause it's prettier, but like, to me, their only value is their tech, and they'll probably at some point, if they go under, will sell that off to somebody else. But yeah, call it the Sheriff of Nottingham. Yep. I think I even include that in my DD, right? My first thing was, where have you been? Right? Would be awesome if you can get some inputs on HUT. Okay. They did their second quarter earnings report this morning. Sure, we can take a look at it. All right. Oops. I fat fingered that. All right. So dilution may not matter for them. That's a good thing. Let's take a look. Any news? It looks like they gapped up, though. Is that a gap up? Yeah. So you may see this come back and fill at some point if that's a gap up. All right. HUD-8 reports. Strong quarterly revenue of $43.8 million. BitHold increased 14%. Achieved adjusted EBITDA of $6.8 million. Yeah, I mean, that looks good. Obviously, they mined more coins. That's good. Across the board, total revenue was higher. Net loss, though, was also much higher. Mining profit went down. That's not good. Adjusted EBITDA is not great. Half as much cash. What did they do? They must have paid off a bunch of liabilities. Yeah. I mean, if you look, their cash is down. They had a bigger cash position here, but they must have paid down a bunch, or at least some debt right here. So overall, they so revenue was up, but at the same time, expenses were up, and they actually lowered their shareholder equity during that time. They did pay down some debt, which is good, but at the same time, their total assets shrank. They have less cash now, so Semper Fi. Yeah, there was a guy on. I was waiting for my my cab, right? So I'm sitting there. It was an Uber. I was waiting for this Uber, right? And this guy's like, "Yeah, how's it going?" And I'm like, "Good." And I think he wanted some money. He asked me for some money, and he was like, "Yeah, man." He was like, "That's a nice bag." He was looking at my bag, and I was like, "Yeah, I've had it since Iraq." He was like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "I was out there, man, shooting people and stuff," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." He was obviously like drunk. Yeah, I was not in like a great part of town where I broke down. I wasn't planning on being there, and then we're sitting there talking, and I was like, "All right, so where'd you do boot camp?" And he was like, "Pensacola." I'm like, "That's not a boot camp." I'm like, "That's not okay." I think he was just kind of blown out of his butt because I mean, like, I was asking him like what duty stations he was on. He was like giving me wrong names, and I'm like, "Yeah, you weren't a Marine." But I just went along with it because some drunk homeless guy is sitting there talking to me. Might as well not call him out on his lies. Hollywood, there's a Hollywood Marine there. I was Parris Island, but I did spend a lot of time on the California side because I was at Pendleton most of my career. So, 21 area. All right, I was 22 area for a little bit, and then 14 main side. That's. Pulling it up. Yeah, just off Oceanside. Yeah, 21 area was on the Oceanside, right? It was on the it was on the other on the coast, right? Yeah. What's funny is that's where 21 area is, but 22 area is way down in the, it's like in the middle of nowhere. I shouldn't say nowhere, but like, was it Bastalone or something like that? Was it Vandergrift or was it Bastalone that you go down and you pass by 22 area? Yeah, 22 area. And then, because I was part of First Meth, and then I was going to say I ended up at 14 area, which was, you know, right outside Oceanside. I was 51 area. I was the alien they studied. That's a range for you counting out the area. Yeah, anyone that's lived on Pendleton knows. And like 43 areas lost Polgus, and there's what's the other one? There's one I remember all the gates we used to have to like go in and be like, you didn't want to go in like the main gate because like if you've been drinking a couple, like you don't want to get like arrested by the MP. So the other like smaller gates were a lot less crowded, and you know they were not as anal. So you could go through some of the side gates, and they usually would just wave you through if they saw your sticker, and you know you throw up your sergeant sticker. All right. So anyway, back to this. So yeah, I mean the earnings was okay. How did they do for the day? Let's look it up. There's no major dilution or anything that I saw. They gapped up. So, do they have a bunch of short interest? Let's look. Because I was going to say, I'm just wondering, was that like shorts closing, or was that just retail pumping it, or like it wasn't like a huge. I mean, obviously some things had improved, so that's a good thing. But like big picture, it was okay. It wasn't like a massive beat or a. According to Ortex, though, it didn't. They don't have a ton of short interest against them. Let's see. To this whole range down here, they've been basically with the lows, one something. Now they're back up into the 2s and 3s. I mean, it consolidated down here for a while, so, but it's not a ton of short interest, so that's not the thing. But okay, but yeah, from them, they look like they're okay. I mean, they spend a good amount of time down here, so this could very well be some like accumulation, and now people are going to be heading back up. I'm sure as Bitcoin does better, you'll reach better, but like they shorted it down for a while, and it looks like they've been kind of like closing shorts probably during this time frame. Let's see. They've pretty much had roughly the same short, right? It's been about like under 10, between 5 and 10, depending. Okay. So people shorted them basically when Bitcoin was like dropping like a rock, but now they're consolidating and all right. I know I asked you last week, but FSRD making big jumps 5 days, 50%. What's the deal? Okay. Let's pull it up real quick. We got FSRD fast radius. Okay. So they do have some warrants. They have 15.5 million warrants. If you look here, the cash position is pretty dire looking. It looks like they don't have a ton of cash left. It looks like they've been burning a good amount. Now that could have been from like a merger acquisition but like, all right. So they've got warrants mainly at 1150. And I said I think if I remember this one correctly, I said they may be trying to get to those because they need the cash. But let's take a look. Okay. All right. There's almost no short interest on this. It's a very, yeah. I mean, there's just not a whole lot of short interest on this, so it's not a short squeeze play. Could just be a reversal. So they have 73 million shares outstanding and about 18.9 million float. So, I mean, spring automatic rally. Put these out. I would be curious to see where this all shakes out as far as, like, this looks like it's a major support line right here. So I'd be curious to see what happens, because obviously it broke through, but it got pushed back down. It tried running up, didn't make it. Today they actually, it looks like, touched it. So I'd be curious to see. In fact, it finished right on the support line. So I'd be curious to see what ends up happening with that. But you could probably do the thing in there. But yeah, the only dilution they have is 1150 when you're sitting there at what was it, 80 cents or something like that. You don't really have to worry about dilution so much. You just need to make sure they don't get delisted because they have to get pushed up. So unless they do a reverse stock split, but mainly for them, they need cash badly. So you may see some sort of. I don't see a shelf though, so I don't think they have much offering ability. So unless they file for one, I'm not sure. I mean, we'd have to look at their balance sheet. Do they have any filings? Okay, let me pull this over. Oh, is that really? Just reading through. That looks like they're okay, right? Is this 57 million? Yeah, they've got these warrants up here. Okay. Net loss was decent sized. Yeah, so I don't know. Dilution Tracker may not have that completely accurate if they think that they have negative cash. It's at least according to the last 10Q, they had cash. So I don't know. But yeah, I don't see. I mean, they do have the warrants at 1150 though, just so you know. Right here, 1150. 6.8, 8.6. So there you go. Let's see. Fubo's got a bunch of warrants and ATMs going right now, so just be careful of that one. They do have registered warrants ready to go right here. And whenever they feel like it, they can dilute. So they may run up before they dilute, but you just have to be aware that the dilution is there. So I don't know. How did they do today? Yeah, there's a lot of these stocks that have been down here consolidating and now are starting to make their first moves up. But if this starts running at some point, just realize that they can dilute with these ATMs. So if they need the cash, which it looks like they're fine on cash, but like if they really wanted to raise the cash, it's there for them. So at any point they can dilute. Viridoo. They gapped up. Watch this gap right here. That will probably need to fill back down here at like 1342, roughly. Let's see. Okay, so for them, they've got a good amount of cash. They don't really need it. Looks like they have an equity line of credit, but that's not going to really matter because they have so much cash. Shelf's still available, but that's fine too. Yeah, they've already really did their dilution at this point. So Viridoo has, kind of, I don't see any immediate problems with that. And they've got, a small cash burn versus how much cash they have. So, yeah, they've got like 2 years worth of cash. So, yeah, I don't see any major flags on that, except for this gap, which we'll probably touch at some point in the next couple of days. Because I don't think they'll let it run without, you know what? They gapped up here too. And this gap filled, right? No, it didn't. Yeah, you've got 3 major gaps here. That's a little bit worrisome. They don't have to fill, but it just, normally they do. So you have a gap down here to basically like 565. You have a gap here at like 10 something. Ugh. I don't like that. I like there to be no more gaps below me when I'm buying a stock. Like, or at least they need to be like super far down. Like, it got here, it filled there. It gapped here, but it has not gone back and filled. So unless they got some amazing news, it's like, ugh. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, you've got a pocket of liquidity that may not have been filled in these right here, so. Yeah, I mean, they obviously have buy pressure. It's just, for me personally, I don't like owning stocks that, I take that back. Whenever stocks gap up like that, leave these large daily gaps, they typically fill, and that makes me nervous as a long shareholder. So there you go. Yeah, you just have to be aware of them, okay? Like, for example, DTC this morning, right? Everybody got really excited because DTC beat on, like, revenue, right? So everyone's like, oh, DTC is going to fly. Well, guess what happens, right? It went from 601, and it gapped up to like 7 or something like that, right? And then it pushed up to like 740, and then it just tanked, right? Well, guess what? If you knew that there was a gap here at 601, and you were buying up here in the 7s, then that's yeah. I don't think DTC has any recent gaps, right? No, it's just been pretty much a falling knife, and it looks like it's just starting to break out and go back and test, and that's when I would expect it to go. May have another wave down and then chop around, but then eventually I think it goes. Yeah. So just be aware. Yeah, so DTC was super interesting today. I mean, you literally like up, down, up. Like, it's still in the up channel right now. I expect it to go even further. I've got a bunch of shares and some commons, and a bunch of shares and some options. But personally, I'm not looking for anything but, a long, that one I don't think is so much a squeeze candidate as is like a good turnaround and strong stock going forward as long as they maintain their growth and stuff like that. So, All right. Well, I am going to jump off early just because, number one, we're not getting a whole bunch of other questions. And number two, I just had a long day and I just need to lay down because it's been a rough day with me sitting around the, what's it called? The gas station waiting to get seen, and then just miserable sitting around waiting on this guy who showed up with the wrong tires, and then okay, BBBY, one last one. All right, that's the last one, and I'm going to go over their options chains because thanks, appreciate it, random. All right, because the options chains on BBBY are getting stacked. So, is it on Fintel's Gamma? I would imagine it probably would be, because I started eyeing there's like options chains, and they look like there was a bunch. Let me see. They're number one for Gamma. DTC and ATER, actually. That's weird. Did you guys see that? That's interesting. Okay. Let's see. I'm just updating something real quick. I wanted to add one more picture to the post. Picture. ATER. Oops. Oh, what happened? ATER number 3 on Gamma squeeze. Score. Interesting, right? All right, so we're pulling up options chains for BBBY. But yeah, interesting that these DTC went from basically number 107 all the way to number 2 overnight. That's pretty interesting. I would imagine, though, if DTC actually got volume, that quickly that thing would get out of control because there's so much institutional ownership that you would quickly be like, just pulling it up real quick on DTC. Nope. Pulling up BBBY. The number 1. All right, here we go. Options chains for tomorrow. Let's look it up. Yep, there is a good amount of. Wow, that is a gamma squeeze right there. If they pull this off, market makers don't screw over apes, which I'm sure they will. BBBY. Okay. So pull it up for you guys. just so you see, they're desperately trying to, throw up a ton of, puts down here. And the puts are cheap. Cheap as all anything. This is what they did with ATER, actually. You make the puts super, super, super duper cheap and allow them to stack up OI, and then you basically short it down and then you push it down so they don't fall in the money, because they have to quote-unquote hedge for all this volume, right? It's literally the same thing they did with Aterian back in the day. So we'll see what happens tomorrow if they can push it under 10, because obviously that's where a good amount of this OI is. Now, the more stuff that's bought down here, that's going to be what basically drives this up. Or if people are selling puts down here, or selling puts even close to the money, that's going to be, obviously additional gamma pressure that's built up across this entire thing. But like, this thing could blow. If this transfers over that $11 to, like, I don't know who's closing, who's opening. We'll have to see it. We'll have to see it tomorrow. But if you look at this, the best thing that anyone that's in this could do is, honestly, if you wanted to actually, have them hedge, you would have obviously deeper in the money calls, or you'd be selling near the money puts. But obviously that's not financial advice. I'm just throwing that out there. Then that's how that would do it. Because if all this stuff is sitting there and they've not hedged any of this going into tomorrow, next week's going to be ugly if they choose. I mean, they can drive it down, but like, even if all this stuff is owed, I'd have to see what they're, and even next week, it's like full. So the next 2 weeks really are just a ton of call options. And there's a ton of September in the monies. There's a ton of, oh my God, they got like 41K at $10 for January. And open interest. That's insane. Yeah, people are buying deep in the money stuff on this. People are getting educated. So I've got some BBBY calls and some shares. So I'm hoping it works out and it goes well. But yeah, that option chain's full. Like, if the market makers mess around and can't drive that down, they're going to be in big trouble. Because I don't think there's any dilution events for it. Like, the Aterian had like those pre-funded warrants that, we didn't think about it because we didn't think, they were going to use them. But like, I don't think BBBY has any like dilutionary or things that can kind of, I don't know. To me, that's interesting. There's lots and lots though of here, I'll pull up the chart. Yeah, you're getting volume. Like, you're starting to get like 100 million in volume. Volume's died down a little bit, but like, I'm sure FTDs are piling up on this stock. But also remember, I don't think we filled the gap here. Yeah, so we still haven't filled this gap. So we're in this weird area here where people are profitable if they can push the stock price down. But like, this turns into another like GME thing where they just keep piling on deep in the money. Like, anything with deltas of like 0.5, you're going to see a whole bunch of, hedging have to occur, and maybe even like some sort of squeeze for the stock. So, all right, there you go. I covered the last one. Again, I am Anna. None of this is financial advice, but at the same time, if you have any interest in hanging out with us and talking stocks, okay, with Aterian's September warrants, they don't necessarily need to get the stock price over by a certain time, do they? No, I mean they've got until 2026 on those warrants. But I would imagine, Yeah, you bought it at 11. Yeah, you're fine. I was gonna say, I think it's gonna get the biggest thing is gonna get over this cloud, right? So if they get over this cloud and clear it, like they're in the free, there's gonna be like no resistance until the next like point where the whoever the market makers or whatever is gonna just put the brakes on. But this thing will go up in spurts if it does squeeze. So the best thing I can tell you is if you believe in it, average down. If you deep in the money stuff is better than out of the money stuff. So, I'm not responding to that, Izzy. I'm no sailor. I was a Marine. All right. So let's see. And sorry, the warrants. Yeah, they don't have to be done right at September. So they could be a year in. Who knows? But I just know that if they allow you to basically average down, what you can do is if the lower you get your average, the more profitable or the quicker you'll be in profit or break even. So that's what my goal has been. When the Aterian drops, I average down, and then I let it hang out when it's chopping around. So all right. Now I'm really going. But yeah, for anyone that's new, if you're hearing this for the first time, we do have a Discord that's free. You're more than welcome to join us. There's a bunch of smart people trading in there. We were adding some accounting rules, and we're going to add some other rules, but I just wanted to throw it out there that anyone's more than welcome to join us. There is no like snags. It's literally just a free Discord and there's also free education stuff, and yeah, I encourage people to come hang out with us and talk stocks and ask questions and go from there. All right, so I'll include the link. Set it to never expire. All right, there you go. Yeah, we have fun in there. It's good. All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening. I'm going to try to just forget about today and wash my sweaty body because I was sitting outside for 4 hours on the side of the road waiting. So you guys have a great evening, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.